All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's throw it over to our commentators. It's John Allen and Blank to close out the day.
3 more matches to go, Blank, here today. The final day of the PMWI. It has been a journey. Vampire have been at the head of this train for a long, long time. But the first games of today haven't been the most stellar for them.
No, and I think realistically, it's okay that they take a break.
That's true.
They slow things down slightly. Ravenclaw also picking up those 9 points last game. Marangle basically just setting the phone down on the table and just waiting things out. It worked out fantastically well. 9 points, you can't turn your nose for that, to be honest. And for Vampire, as even Defy said over on the stage, it's so hard to catch up to them. Most teams are now looking at second place. I think the desk even pointed out that the spacing between 4th and 10th right now is around about 10 points. So the amount that can change in the next 3 matches is humongous, and it's a lot of money in between those positions. It's a huge amount of money in between those positions.
4th place in this final tournament worth 100K, Blank. And then you drop that down into the 40s as you go towards that sort of 10th place. So it is a big, big jump, 60 sort of, in the region of 60 grand, which is a phenomenal amount of money for a 10-point gap. We'll have to wait and see who's going to be able to shuffle themselves to the top of the deck. The plane path sits on the west of Erangel for our 3rd helping of the map today. The circle, though, goes a little bit further east. Not quite as far east as we saw earlier today, but still on the eastern lane.
Towards farm as well as Potato Hill. Chinky around this area. Twisted Minds picking up that position nice and early. Stalwart heading over towards Novo. Slow rotations out of this team that worked about 2 years ago doesn't work as well anymore. So they're going to have to adjust on that side. At least this circle is towards their area of the map where they start in Novo. So getting that early rotation in shouldn't be as difficult. They certainly have tried to speed things up in the previous matches of today, which has gained them some more points, right? They're getting towards the end game a lot more, which is nice to see. And that's going to be really, really good news for them, just in terms of points alone. Currently in 5th place with 87 points. That's fantastic news for them. Fantastic news for you guys at home that I'm delivering straight to your doorstep is the 2023 PMWI crate, which is only available through from July 15th to the August 15th.
The one
it's a day to remember, basically.
Absolutely.
So make sure you get your hands on some of those bad boys.
Might be a sad day because it'll be the last day of the crate, but definitely one you do not want to let slip your mind. Heading into this game, we're on board with Alter Ego right now. They're just skirting around near the farm area, just near Potato Hill as well, grabbing those vehicles, getting looted up nice and early. Central on the circle, 2-2 split right now. Falcon close by on the south side of Potato Hill, playing as 4. Fewer vehicles available to them, but they'll be able to grab a couple more on these roadsides. Close by to Alter Ego, actually. Could see a little bit of a scuffle. Shots coming out from Alter Ego and returned, but it's Fnatic to deal the first blow. And that's a really solid knock. Potato might just try and roll this one over, but Fnatic's running up with that M16. The turnaround from Falcons. They want to try and re-engage on this, and in fact, they will find Octa. Going 1-for-1 right now on the trades. Axa falls second. But they are, again, trading back and forth between these two rosters. Falcons have lost a 3rd. There's the first flush coming through, and Rosemary's moving up to the buggy, looking for this res potentially onto Fnatic to get them back into fighting form.
Rosemary, though, he's a greedy player. This guy will immediately go for a little bit more action. Potato will run down King, confirm that one with only a micro Uzi as well as a pistol. Rosemary will confirm it. After all, the Infinity IQ underneath them just rock up. Looks like Rosemary, again, is going to go for some more eliminations. He does not care about the rescues whatsoever. This guy's all about the frags. The Ferrari's behind.
Protecting Potato from the roll-up of 2 players here. Ferrari trying to control the tree, but it will not go his way. Bensu now, with a turn of attention over to Potato, will be able to keep his team from falling down all the way, but Teek's still around the corner. Blank. That was not great news for Alter Ego. We talked about how volatile that 4th through 10th place is. And if you're going down early like this, in the 16th match of an 18-match set, it is very, very bad news. Those teams around you will eat up that gap.
Yeah, there's certainly a chance there for a reset on the engagement and to go for some of those reses. Unfortunately, Rosemary was just way too fixated on getting those eliminations. And he did look very slick in the process. Very, very cool, pulling on the sunglasses and then just rotating 360, unleashing bullets everywhere, getting a fair few knocks in the process. I don't think Infinity IQ expected such a defense coming out from that team there. Alpha 7, though, on your screen, 5 average eliminations. As Max said on the desk there, if you are averaging 5 eliminations, you are just good, right? That is a brilliant place to be. Anything above 5 eliminations is kind of like that outlier stage of things where you have absolutely blasted out of your mind in this tournament. And Alpha 7 are looking to regain that second place spot. Very unlikely now at match 4 they'll be able to catch up towards Vampires without some unbelievable matches ahead of us. But they certainly would like to go home with a second place. So many people were thinking Alpha 7 coming into this tournament were just going to take everything away from how they've been playing throughout the year, which has been, quite honestly, terrifying.
We did have our doubts, though, about Alpha 7 after watching them in the All-Stars stage. They didn't really have the power that we'd come to expect from them. They did step up towards the end of it. And even coming into the start of the main tournament days, right? They didn't have maybe the impact that they wanted to, but they absolutely have proved themselves over the course of this set of matches and done so, so well. As you say, definitely that Alpha 7 that we've wanted to see, that we were missing before. We are delighted to have them here, vying for that second place spot against STE 628.
Yeah, I think for Alpha 7 as well, they've been fairly consistent from both tournaments and All-Stars through to this tournament too. That, yeah. So this is where you see the outlier, right? Average damage dealt per angle being 1,800. You know, we get excited about 2K a lot of times on any particular map. The fact that Vampires are practically doing that every single map. And you've got to remember that we've already played 2 of these Erangels so far, and both times it really was not a stellar performance. So before this day, you know, those numbers would have been highly inflated to get this kind of result. 176 points in first place to 125 in second. I think that this has been one of the most dominant tournaments on an international scale we've seen in a very, very long time. Next circle hitting very soon. Right now we're hovering around Farm and Milta and Pachinki itself. So there is potential for an urban finish. There's potential for a really hard south shift down towards Sosnovka military base, which does encompass both the bridges right now. So there's still a chance for these teams to go for the camps.
A lot of teams sent fairly central quite early on in this match, Blank. We had a bit of a glut on that south coast with teams trying to pack themselves in as tightly as possible. Circle just about to pop. Gladiators making their way in from that north side, close to Senatexa from Alpha 7. And the rest of them, I believe, as well, trying to make their way just a little bit further west. It circles up onto Potato Hill, essentially, and right on top of this central position of teams. Stalwart from the east side of Novo, gonna have to move up that bridge. They've already started doing that. DRS as well, having to leave that. But the decision can be made now, which is the good news for them.
Yeah, a lot of compounds and buildings over towards the coastal side that a few of these teams can pick up early on and start working their way into the circle from there. So there's definitely opportunity for lots of teams to feel rather safe in this kind of circle. There's a few really big points around the map that will become absolutely essential later on. Obviously, covering from Potato Hill is going to be a nice position to get some scouting done. You don't really typically want to take the entirety of it, though, because it's extremely hard to hold. As a full squad, typically you'd have 1 or 2 teams over that side. You have the rolling hills up towards the north that we could end on. We also have a load of different types of elevation over towards Pachinki. It's a really interesting circle we can finish in here because the dynamic is going to change massively depending on the next couple of circles.
Vampire still with all 4 of their players alive, which is something they haven't seen into the late game so far today. We've missed it from the previous days. Twisted Minds rolling up onto Box, who have got the pins pulled. They're ready to receive seemingly damage straight on through. Takes a bit of damage, but we're not really going to have too much luck trapped in this corner, I'd imagine. DBS in hand, sure, but how many are you going to be able to take down? The answer, 2. effective to a degree. I don't think we maybe expected there, but Crypto has got more in the chamber, pulling the pins as well. Isolating the upstairs, gets a flush and a knock onto Duck. There's only one player left now on the inside, but he's vaulting into the fire. He's going straight on in, getting burnt, but he's taking players down with him. Quan puts the shot in with the nade as well and keeps Box alive, but that was a little bit too hairy for their liking. 2 players from Twisted Minds just did that.
I mean, Crypto definitely pulled the hero play, right? He literally ran back into a burning building to help his teammate. And Dami had done very well. The bullets passing through him like Swiss cheese, which is always good to see. Really quick movement, DBS in hand. Yeah, very much harder than it needed to be there for Box to finish off on that fight. Fireflux off in the distance, very much central alongside with this team. Sloping downwards on this hillside. Pretty open here on out, though. A fair few teams just trying to keep themselves towards these compounds. As we talked about before, there's a lot in this area that you can pick up and stay out of the action for a long, long while.
Teak is just over in Milter Power, having lost all of his teammates early, just sent out, trying to get looted, play out in the blue, try and solo in as long as possible. We saw what Schweppes was able to do with it earlier today, keeping himself alive for Vampire. Circle quite central. Again, on towards Potato Hill, starting to cut out those urban environments, Blank, but this hilltop will prove to be more and more pivotal as time goes on.
Yeah, if we do get another northern shift as well, it's going to mean that we're going to be isolating a lot of these engagements around the map. Obviously, up towards that northwest side, we have a fielded area just outside of Pachinki. A little bit more difficult to play, but some of these teams should be able to just sit around those outer edges. And I think the most interesting thing is Alpha 7 coming down from North George, as well as Gladiators from Severny. They have a huge amount of space to play with, but hardly any information to work with going forward, because looking past that down towards the south side is really, really hard from this position to get that information without just being shot at on the rotation. So Gladiators and Alpha 7, they've got a very chilled life ahead of them over towards this north side. And they're most likely just going to have to wait for a lot of these teams on the south to move up. But it is all of our teams, well, barring 2, just encompassed on that 50% edge on the south side. It is really, really cramped. And a lot to do with the fact that we were talking about earlier, the huge amount of compounds and buildings and little ditches in this area that you can play in.
628, a team in a pivotal position, looking to hold on to second place against Alpha 7. But they are in much hotter water right now, Blank, on that southwest side. You talked about that split, 628, right on the edge of it. And they're going to have to try and force their way through, or break far out to the west side and try and swing all the way up north and actually take on Alpha 7 themselves. Those are really the early options, and it looks like they are going to break out a little bit further, try and get around the back of DRS.
Yeah, honestly, that there is a good play to make here, which is a really, really wide wrap up towards Church and Pachinki and go through that way. Unfortunately for them, getting caught up in the action versus DRS should make a very quick stop to this.
Leaps on through on the back of the buggy. Will look for more as well. He rolls up, tries to stop those raises. It will go well, but his teammate are falling to bits right now, and it's not good news for 628 and for that second place hold. 10 points ahead right now is the buffer between them and Alpha 7. Going down here fully would be that opening that Alpha 7 would have looked for, and given Alpha 7's position on that north side of the circle, they can get into this one late relatively simply.
It's massively bad there for 628, and I think it's sort of unfortunate because 628 has made these interesting plays in the past where they go for these wide wraps. DRS is the exact same team in that sense of things. I think they were looking to go for something similar on a wide route down towards the south side, which is interesting, but they just get caught up over towards that hill on the west side of Pachinki. And 628 just immediately ripped to pieces.
Ooh.
Circle over towards that western side, though. And now Vampires have a very strong compound looking over towards the east, over the field. So if this circle does move further towards the eastern side, yes, Vampires will have to leave, but they are in a lot of safety for the time being. We are going to see a lot of teams start to go down now because we are moving away from a lot of the compounds. And again, we're filtering teams in past Potato Hill on that northeast side.
this really assuages some of the power and staying ability of Alpha 7 and Gladiators on that north side. With the shift as it is, everybody's going to be moving onto that east side, which is their main target of rotation as well. It means that they're going to have to fold back into the fray with the rest of them and try and keep on going. Rules is down in the face of 33Z, and he's looking for more onto Killer. I mean, he's not going to let up, is he? But Gamers8 finally puts a stop to the nonsense on the southwest side. Finally dispatches 628, 125 the mark now for Alpha 7 to try and leapfrog. Infinity IQ taking on Stalwarts. At the moment, Action's doing bits, but how much more has he got in the tank here? Trying to burn out the enemy, and he will be able to, but will get knocked in the process. Nerzed gets the final shot over towards Infinity IQ.
That was great from Action. That is the Action of the past, though, and that's what you want to see. Really, really amazing hold over towards Infinity IQ. Came blasting towards him. Teak from Falcons, this is one hell of a rocket ship send over towards this side. And will find himself pretty safe in the chopsticks outside of Pachinki. But again, like we said before, these buildings for Vampires have a little bit of elevation that just looks directly down over this fielded region. Teams are going to struggle to get close to them. They have a split that looks down towards the south as well, because I think they're pretty conscious about teams rotating in through that south side. They assume that there will be a squad that will have taken the eastern compound. That currently is both Tiamba and mainly Geeke here, who will be covering that northeast side. So I think for Vampires, they're covering mainly the areas that are going to be the biggest pain points from them in particular. It's quite smart at this stage in the game.
A lot of teams starting to line the edge of the circle blank as well. You've got Box all the way out to the east, Fireflux south of them, just on the southeast point. Reject Tokyo and DRS also trying to just eke their way closer and closer into this circle. But we've got quite a hard shell on this next phase.
Yeah, Box Gaming as well as Fireflux are in two really strong compounds. If this circle was shifted much further towards that eastern side, and I think it's not necessarily bad right now that they sit here, but at some point they will have to get moving. Fireflux has been really slow this tournament, quite sluggish. I think that they need to get themselves a little bit of energy on board and get moving sooner or later. D plus Kia comes up against Alpha 7 as Mafioso takes a tumble.
Far from ideal. Mafioso going down, being a standout player for them today, gets flushed away, and Alpha 7 almost, completely gone. They had their chance. 628 going out so early left them an opening, but that has been firmly shut in their face by D plus Kia. Gladiators looking to try and third party onto it, but basically no damage was done in response to D plus Kia.
Yeah, it was a really big opportunity there for Alpha 7 to get ahead of things. And thrown away, realistically. Circle centers up towards Geeke's compound on the eastern side of the field. Vampires with their outpost down towards the south should start to be able to move towards Tiamba and maybe rotate through on that center side. D plus Kia realize this as well, move over to one of the smaller areas of safety on the northern edge of the field. But yeah, around about 50% of this circle completely unplayable, which means we'll be crunching in a lot of teams on that eastern edge. And Gladiators have a very good oversight on Potato Hill currently towards that position. Fireflux, Box Gaming, as we said before, on that eastern side, relatively out of the way. They'll have to get moving soon.
This scrap on our screens right now would dictate who's going to have to push past the Vampires and Tianba line on the south side of Pachinki Fields east. And at the moment, DRS are down 1, Reject Tokyo are down 2. With the res being enacted for DRS, the numbers are better for them. 2 players to face off against, and with Killer back on his feet in just a second, Sarah's close by, wanting to put him back down on the dirt here, but Rules evades the damage from the nade. Duello rotates up on high on top of the hill, and Delta's looking for the flushes. Takes down Sarah in the process, and now it is just Duello. Killer breaks out wide, DBS to DBS, muzzle to muzzle. And it is the Japanese team to take the dip there. Killer finds the final shot.
He's been phenomenal from DRS so far. Real standout for the team. And he has shined in so many different situations. A lot of times coming in to get the teams back on its feet and going in the direction that they need to. Shifting that bad boy back into drive as opposed to reverse. So does really, really well there. Now, Gladiators have moved down. This is to lock out a lot of these rotations that will be coming through from Fireflux and Box Gaming. But in the meantime, DRS just swing through a really, really quick rotation in towards the circle. Fireflux spot this one out, but Delta so quick with it. And already 2 players from Fireflux down. Again, that slow rotation comes in very important here.
Shots raining in from Gladiators from up on high. Their high ground angle doing so much work against both Fireflux and DRS. A fast maneuver from DRS gets 2 of them through. Rules and Killer have managed to make it. They had a difficult push to make, so good news to probably survive with 2 at this stage for them.
Yeah, a lot of times for Gladiators, and I think Max was talking about as well, is that they kind of overextend over towards the blue instead of just going for the obvious decision. I think in this particular circle, they haven't moved out too far. They take a strong spot on this ridge side, looking down towards that slope that goes towards those 2 incredible compounds that they identified earlier on. This is very smart play from Gladiators, and it's weird the way they have these topsy-turvy games of just smart things happening and going back to something that's a little bit more awkward. Trong's in is going to really struggle here regardless. The blue will most likely take him down, but this is good. They've sweeped out the majority of the eastern side. It was always going to be a tough game, but with the amount of points they keep getting here, their run towards second place is now opening a bit further with both second and third place out of the game. This is probably their most important match of the day.
D+ Kia, what a shift for them on the northern side. They've got that outpost with Seidan on the north. They can regroup Forest of Favian over towards that direction. DRS with their Lone Ranger rules can stay on the north side of the compound, and Geeke going to have to fend off both Tiamba and Gladiators unless there's those wide swings coming through. We'll see if Gladiators are going to go back to that sweeping style that they have held so firmly, sometimes to their detriment too, in these last couple of games.
Yeah, right now, Rules' position completely accessible to the Gladiators. If they go for a quick crash here and don't get too shot out by a lot of these other teams, that is certainly a possibility for them. Rule will require some smokes to get there and probably a further northern wrap to push in towards it. But for the Gladiators, yes, there's been some complicated solutions to some simple problems. And I think that's something that's coming in quite detrimental to the team at the moment. I think that they realistically need to maybe work on that in future because I think they have made things a little bit harder than it needs to be. Again, we're heading down towards Tiamba now to sweep out this team. I still think there's an opportunity where you just let Tiamba get taken out by Geeke and push further into the game, potentially getting more eliminations. But I think they're so cognizant of the fact that they are still a little bit far behind and 10th place is so close. If they can confirm these eliminations now and get that on board, that might be better for their overall run.
Vampire, we're going to wind up and figure out their path forwards, because this is not an easy push. What cover do they have to play around? Nothing really. I mean, they've got the smokes, they've laid the groundwork. Now it's time to move forwards. This dip will be in the next circle, so they can hold here for a little bit. Try and wait for those teams on the east to burn themselves out.
Yeah, just basically pushing from trench to trench here with the smokes available. Very well coordinated, and it feels like a lot of teams aren't really looking towards it. This is the play that I mentioned earlier on, and when they had to go for this type of smoke train, not easy to pull off. So a lot of smokes on the top side to try and keep that back. But with Tiamba pushing in towards Geeke, it provides a great opportunity now for Gladiators to instantly send towards DRS's position. They know that they took out the majority of the teams that came through here, so this has to be a team that is fairly weakened. Geeke would rather hold on to these warehouses, the longhouses on this side. So this is the building they take. Very, very intelligent. And this is probably one of the first successful crashes we've seen in a long time because they've gone for a good setup.
Don't speak too soon, though. There's nades in play, and Gladiators are a little bit grouped here. A nade dropped down the stairs from Rules. There's cross shots as well coming through from Geeke. Meku looking to cook one of his own, spots the ankles, will be dispatched. They are not down, but D+ Kia looking to maybe take some shots from that northern side. Geeke will absolutely take the shots if they can. Both of these teams firmly in the circle. Tiamba now looking to crash in. You could see the smokes train established here. 4 players alive, and in they go. Over out to the right, followed by Tianyu. YDD takes a lot of damage from a nade, but Tianyu goes down first as well, putting them out the back door here. Geek8 hold off the first wave of the push, but there's still more yet to come as Vampire crest the ridgeline of their cover and make their way across the field with the undulations their only cover.
Spotting out one of the players from Gladiators as well through the window. They'll have to spend time on that res. But that was a very well-timed push coming through from Gladiators. It looks much more akin to what we're used to from them back in the European region. Oh, beautiful nade through the window from YDD to open things up. It has gone very poorly at the start here. The Tiamba tries to repel and rally themselves back into the building. All the while, Vampire is getting free reign of the circle on the western side because all of these teams are occupied with one another at the moment.
You can see the minute ridges in those fields that they're going to have to be playing around here, Blank. Smokes will be their only cover, vehicles if they're lucky. Shots from Tianba moving them back on in, and Satan trapped in the corner, burning behind the fire. Has to try and keep his feet nice and cool. And Tianba down to 2. Geek8 similarly dispatched, dismantled maybe. Another knock sent their way. And the flash comes through. Ground floor occupied, but so is the attic. Kitsune once more.
This is an interesting play coming from Gladiators. I think that they realize this fight has gone on for far too long. So it must be just dregs of teams remaining. In the meantime, Fabian's actually managed to send a scout of himself down towards the south side on the north edge of Gladiators' compound, which D plus Kia could most likely return to later on if they can't actually deal with Vampires, who are ripping them to pieces on the top side, and it's Ravenclaw to do that.
These rocks, these hay bales, lifelines in the field, out in the open for Vampire, but everybody on the inside's preoccupied. Ragnar certainly is. A suppressed PP Bison this late in the game. Let's see how effective it can be. Certainly good for one. Not going to be able to get the flush just yet. Gladiators do not want to risk it. Hope hopping around through the window. Can't quite land the shots. Ragnar looks for more, and he goes down, but not before dispatching Tian, but Geek8 stay alive, and Hope lives.
Geek8's only hope, really, remaining at this point in time, and Vampires have managed to get across. I think for Gladiators, it's probably a better decision to return to the 2-story and get that elevation to look down towards Vampires as they try to make it in. Schweppes is already down, Newsy in just completely open space. Osal, last remaining player other than Fabian now for D plus Kia. I take that back, he's gone. But the Vampires are still going, and from what was a really difficult position, timing and really well-coordinated pushes from them have taken them further in this game than they have any right to. And with the circle moving over towards the west and the reses coming through, perhaps this game actually can go back in the favor of Vampire.
They have the opportunity now. They've established the firing line. The smokes were burnt through on that train that we saw from Gladiators earlier. It's going to be hard to find those resources. A lot of crates should be littered around them. Hopefully they can find something. Hope has squeaked out a window, but he's been spotted. And Vampire will not let that one go. Picking up another point there. 5 eliminations. Remember, Vampire right on the cusp of breaking the chicken dinner record here as well. If they're able to get just this one more.
It's been a crazy game here for Vampire because they have essentially tried to remain as patient as possible while still just taking some stabs here and there at the teams in the building, leaving them wounded and bleeding, which is the main thing for them. So they could never really retaliate onto this position, and both Kitsune and Tixie are both down, just 2 players remaining. Matic opens with 1 over towards Vampires, but right now it's not looking like enough.
Crossfire from Ravenclaw out wide to try and slow Matic's roll. The bullets are landing, the shots are hitting, and Vampire shut the jaws on the camp that they've been able to find themselves. They move over the top in over-contested territory, through the fields, through the fire. And Matic now, the last barrier to their victory, to breaking the record here at PMWI. And the roll down is there, but not going to be able to land it just this time around. It will be good for a second. The spray is good. And Vampire return to form with a massive, dominant